The UEFA Champions League group stage encounter against Juventus was quite a game. No one expected Barcelona to dominate the game and shine so brightly against Andrea Pirlo's men. Indeed, Barcelona fans could have been forgiven for being pessimistic about their team's chances when they landed in Turin. The Blaugrana's form has been patchy to say the least. They lost the first Clasico of the season at home 3-1 and never looked like a team that had enough in the tank to dominate Real Madrid, a team that's still far from playing its best football. So how could they do well against a Juventus side that's pretty solid at home? As it turned out, Juventus have problems of their own. The Bianconeri may have won 9 league titles in a row, but this season they've struggled to do well against even those teams whose very mission for this season is survival and avoiding a life in the second division of Italy. Throughout the 90 minutes, Barcelona were the better side. Ronald Koeman's men were playing quick, free-flowing football, so it wasn't surprising to see Ousmane Dembele score the opening goal. The Frenchman has had his fair share of fitness issues, but on the night, he looked like the world-class winger we know he is. Paulo Dybala was expected to star, but the Argentine international was not given any space to create opportunities for his teammates. Lionel Messi, on the other hand, was offered a lot of freedom, which is always a big mistake. And while Alvaro Morata had 3 goals disallowed, the 2-0 scoreline flattered Juventus. Barcelona could have scored more goals. Just a few hours after Josep Maria Bartomeu and the rest of the board had resigned from their respective posts, the win carried a lot of significance for the Catalan giants. Bartomeu's era was a mixed bag. Barcelona won a lot of trophies in Spain, but the club's off-the-field issues carried an even greater significance. Very slowly, and then picking up pace, the club stopped relying on the La Masia production line, the principles and ethos that made the club a true giant during the Pep Guardiola era and a continuation of the Cruyffian ideology under the guidance of the likes of Luis Enrique and the late Tito Villanueva were forgotten. Barcelona started acting like a club that would go out of its way to bring in expensive imports in order to meet objectives. Due to this, the club's academy graduates started getting less and less chances. Current and former players felt betrayed and voiced their concerns during different time periods. And in the backdrop of all this, the result was much needed. Barcelona haven't been great all season long, but against Juventus, they were in great form and deserved to win. However, is the form going to continue, or was it just a one-off? A result that was borne out purely due to the ecstasy of seeing an infamous president leave for good? Bartomeu is no longer president of the club, and the win over Juventus can definitely be seen by some as some sort of poetic justice, given how bad things had gotten for the team in the last few months. Bartomeu leaving is seen as a triumph of democracy for sure. He was a president, just like his predecessors, elected to rule the club after being voted to do so. His actions irked voters, and thankfully, Barcelona has a mechanism in place to keep a check on its presidents. There was sufficient amount of public pressure which was exerted within and outside the Camp Nou. First it was Messi, whose transfer request ended up being the final nail in the coffin, and then it was Gerard Piqué, who had some choice words to say about how the club was being run. Media had a field day every time someone affiliated with the club had something critical to say. Fans of other clubs don't have any option but to deal with unpopular leaders. Newcastle United, for example, have a loyal fan base, but regardless of the many transgressions and incompetence of owner Mike Ashley, they can't really do much. Barcelona fans, however, have an edge. The setup might be a little imperfect with glaring issues, but at least they can do much more than boycott games or rent out a plane to fly a message of their disapproval. But at the other end of the spectrum, it's clear that being a democratically run club, Barcelona's presidents always tend to be freaking out about their popularity, and fans are always breathing down their neck. That's why I think it's only natural to think short term. While he may be remembered as the man who pushed Messi to the edge and basically threw Luis Suarez out of Camp Nou, the biggest problem with the man was that he struggled balancing out the long-term and short-term thinking. Under his rule, Barcelona almost became the first sports franchise to break the €1 billion mark in terms of revenue. Clearly he was doing something right when it came to branding the club and making it more profitable off the field. An aggressive sponsorship strategy was needed, but in doing so, the club also impacted its long-term growth. However, the main issue is that no matter how much money a club brings in through its marketing strategy and various campaigns, at the end of the day, a football club isn't your average retail brand and will always be judged every week by what the team achieves on the pitch. In that, Bartomeu came up short. Bartomeu was around for 7 years, and while the club did win 4 league titles and 4 cups, they were no longer a force in the Champions League. Real Madrid, on the other hand, made quite a habit of conquering Europe. He wanted to make the team competitive, but could also have done more to prevent Neymar from leaving for Paris Saint-Germain for €222 million. Okay, fine, Barca did get a lot of money for the Brazilian, but what did they do with that money? They ended up blowing the whole transfer fee on players who are yet to prove themselves to be good value for money. Ousmane Dembele has spent a lot of time in Spain injured, while Philippe Coutinho shone only when he was on loan at Bayern Munich. A few years ago, Malcolm was bought from Bordeaux for €41 million. In fact, the Brazilian was ready to sign for Roma before Barcelona swooped in for him. The attacking midfielder made only 6 league starts and simply wasn't good enough. Coutinho cost the club €145 million, and that hasn't really worked out. Guess what Barcelona did? They spent €120 million to sign Antoine Griezmann, even though the Frenchman was always destined to struggle to strike a chord with the likes of Messi and Suarez. Barcelona were in dire need of a centre-forward. They ended up signing Kevin Prince Boateng. The Ghanaian arrived at the age of 31 and he scored 10 or more goals in only one season. More importantly, he was never a centre-forward. Now, Bartomeu wasn't the man who was making these decisions, but as the club's president, the buck does stop with him, so the good and the bad go hand in hand, in equal measure. Under his watch, Barcelona's wage bill kept bloating. By 2019, the wage bill stood at around €530 million and continued rising unchecked. The club never showed any seriousness when it came to letting go of expensive flops, so once the global financial climate worsened at the start of the year, the club's debt started increasing. At present, the debt is close to €500 million. That's also part of the whole financial mess the club is in. Reportedly, Barcelona's strategy of paying transfers in installments means that they're supposed to pay around €170 million over the next few years. With fans still not allowed back inside the stadiums, Barcelona, much like most of the clubs around the world, continues losing money on a weekly basis. So what happens now? Despite putting on quite a spectacle against Juventus in Turin, are Barcelona out of the woods? While results like this do matter a lot in the long run, the problem is that the club's off-the-field issues can have an impact on what happens on the pitch as well. Business executive and media tycoon Victor Font seems to be the most likely candidate to win the presidential election, but would that be enough? Font has said that he wants to reform the club and make it a financially viable institution, but is the Yes to the Future campaign going to work out? According to several rumours, plans are already in place to finally move on from the last vestiges of the club's golden generation. The likes of Ivan Rakitic and Luis Suarez are gone, and Lionel Messi might still leave next year. Already this season we've seen Koeman place a lot of trust in Ansu Fati and the other La Masia graduates such as Pedri and Riqui Puig. Serginho Dest was signed from Ajax in the summer and the young American is understandably seen as the club's future. The old days at Barcelona involved the core of the team being La Masia graduates, and that's what Font wants to do. This is why we might still see the club trying to sell off the likes of Ousmane Dembele and explore options to get Samuel Umtiti off their backs as well. The club failed to sign Memphis Depay in the summer since they needed to raise cash before making a purchase. Barcelona don't have the financial muscle at present to go for a spending spree, so regardless of what Font says, he will have no option other than to make do with the resources he has at his disposal. Messi leaving will really help realign the wage bill, and if they're able to sell off the likes of Dembele, Umtiti and even Griezmann, they might have sufficient funds to restart the La Masia factory and start giving chances to many of the prospects who are waiting in the wings. Font has been very candid about bringing in Xavi once he becomes president, and though he clarified that his words were taken out of context, the presidential hopeful might still do exactly that and bring back Xavi. But is it going to work out? Only time will tell. So far, Barcelona are still in trouble. They're not in a good place, and even though the win over Juventus was a great result, harder times do lie ahead.